What's going on, guys? We got episode 15 here of the Puckpedia Offseason Mock GM series. This episode is the Montreal Canadiens coming into the offseason with $6 million in cap space. Looking at their draft picks here, the Canadiens have a lot of picks in this upcoming draft, so I do expect them to be active in the trade market at the draft. And they also have all their future picks over the next 3 years as well, plus a couple more. So they have a lot of assets they could trade. They have some younger guys too who they've recently drafted who they could look to trade to help accelerate the process of this rebuild. They did just make the playoffs this past year for the first time since 2021, where they went all the way to the finals, which is good for them because, I mean, that's a pretty quick bounce back from, finishing like dead last in the league in 2022 or something like that, or close to it. So yeah, taking a look at this roster here, their top line is pretty much set in stone. Demidov's definitely a long-term piece too. And outside of that, though, I mean, other than Gooley and Hudson and maybe Montembeault or Jacob Fowler, I don't really see a lot of guys on this roster who will be around for the long term. But I do see a lot of trades they could make that could help fix some of those long-term questions and could make them a Stanley Cup contender pretty soon here, maybe even as early as this coming season. So hopping right into it, like I said, I think the Canadiens will be active at the draft. They need a right defenseman. This guy's been in a lot of trade talks recently, and I think the Canadiens are one of the few teams with the assets to trade for him. That is New York Islanders defenseman Noah Dobson. So I'm going to have the Canadiens go for Dobson here, just making sure he's a righty. Okay, good, he is. In exchange for Dobson, I'm going to give up Josh Anderson, Kirby Doc, who's a young project that the Islanders could take on here, because I think they should be going in more of a rebuild direction. And I think Doc is a good piece you could kind of bring on there to, center maybe the second line and hopefully get some more out of him on a low pressure team that's not looking to be competitive anytime soon. But obviously this alone is not enough for Dobson at all. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to add Oliver Kapanen as well. And then to kind of sweeten the deal on defense, we'll give them Jaden Struble. And then on top of that, let's give them the Calgary Flames first round pick. This is a lot to give up, so I'm actually going to help fill another hole for the Canadiens in this trade. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab J.G. Pajot. I think he'd be a great 3C for the Canadiens. Also, let's see. Before I retain on him, Islanders they have 21 million cap space, so they can retain. Maybe like 1.5 mil. I think, yeah, that's a fair retention for him. So maybe this is enough. Maybe it's a little bit short. But we give him our better first round pick. We give him this Penguins pick as well. And then a bunch of just young guys, Oliver Kapanen, a prospect, Struble and Doc, young NHL players who can, fill big holes on the Islanders roster in the future. And then, Josh Anderson, a little bit of a cap dump, but also like a placeholder for the Islanders who will, help fill a roster spot and offer some quality, veteran leadership. So after trading for Dobson, we're going to go ahead. We're going to sign him here right away. We're going to go $9 million for 8 years. I think Dobson's 24, maybe 23, or 25. So 8 years, so it's 33. That's kind of like right where I would want to cut it off. I think paying a guy like the big bucks anything after 34 is a little bit risky on a longer term deal. I think, giving Dobson $9 million till he's 33 is probably going to work out pretty well, I'd say, for the Canadiens, especially with the cap going up. So it'll be interesting to see how that all kind of plays out. I don't really know. So let's see. What else do we got going on here? So now that we have Pajot, he'll slot in there at the 3C. I'll put Jake Evans on the right wing on the third line. Gallagher, I think you kind of just ride him out on the fourth line until his contract's up. You don't really have to buy him out there. That would kind of just be taking on unnecessary cap. And I think he's a good guy for the locker room too, for all the young guys. He's been with the Canadiens for a while. and he knows what it takes to kind of make it to that next level in the playoffs. And he's got a gritty physical style to his game that I think this team's kind of lacking a little bit. So keeping him around, I think that would be pretty helpful for the rebuild process they got going on here. So next move I'm going to trade for another big ticket trade chip that most other teams probably couldn't afford, and that would be JJ Peterka of the Buffalo Sabres. I think looking at the roster here, there's a little bit of a hole at the left wing too, and bringing in Peterka, you could kind of interchange him and Caulfield, and it gives you more flexibility on what you can do with your top six lineups. So you can put either one of them on the right side, you put them on the left side, you can put them on the line together, one on the right, one on the left. Stack the left side, like it doesn't matter, So I think having a guy like Peterka there would be pretty huge for Montreal. And again, he fits just like Dobson, he fits the timeline of the Canadiens here. He's about the same age as most of their core. So he'll probably be around the same as Dobson in terms of what the asking price is for him. So we're going to go ahead here. We're going to give him Logan Mailloux, a good defensive prospect. We'll give him what else? We'll give him Joshua Roy, as well as a 2026 first and second. I don't know exactly what the Sabres are looking for. Maybe they're looking for some more NHL-ready talent, where in that case, we can kind of give them a little bit of a project here in Patrick Laine, who at the moment it looks like more of a cap dump, but, who knows? Maybe the Sabres, of all places, is where he can really rejuvenate his career since Winnipeg. So we'll send him there, even though I don't honestly think if he were to go to Buffalo, I don't think that would work out very well for either side. But it is what it is. You give him 8 years, $7.5 million. Seems fair to me. I kind of like that. We'll just look at AFP here just to see what they say he's going to be worth. Peterka long term. Okay, they have long term. They have him at like $8 million. So I give him 7.5. So I think that's close enough, especially if you're giving him the 8th year as well. 7.5 should be more than enough money for him. So our roster is starting to round out here a little bit. Let's see. Next move I kind of want to make, looking at the trade board, you need a 2C still. Because you can put Pajot there, but he won't be much better than Doc was in that spot. And I think having him down here on your third line is kind of bottom six scoring would and if you could find a 2C, obviously have him in that third line role, given that bottom six scoring would be pretty beneficial for the Canadiens, I'd say, and make you just more of a deep team in general. So looking at our trade board here, a 2C that I would want to go for, who I think would be relatively cheap for what you'd get for him, is Mika Zibanejad. He's been in a lot of trade talks recently, and the Rangers have already been pretty active so far this offseason on the trade market, already shipping off Chris Kreider. So we're going to go ahead here. We're going to shed some more cap for the Rangers, take Mika Zibanejad. We're going to have him retain $1.5 million. So Mika Zibanejad at a total of, actually, we're going to go a whole $2 million here. Retain a whole $2 million. Mika Zibanejad at $6.5 million would be much better for the Canadiens to have as your 2C, because you don't really want a 2C who's kind of your highest paid player on the team, other than Dobson in this case. So we're going to help the Rangers out with their hole at left defense. We're going to give Mike Matheson, who's also been in trade talks recently. And then to sweeten the deal a little bit, we'll give him Philippe Messar, as well as a 2026 third, because I think this would be an after the draft trade. Actually, maybe a third's not enough. We'll go 2027 second. Yeah, 2027 second. That's good. So bang, send that trade through. And now we got pretty loaded center core here of Suzuki, Zibanejad, and Pajot, as well as some solid top six wingers in Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Peterka, and Demidov, who I'm very excited to see what he can do with a full year in the NHL. I think people kind of critiqued him for his play in the playoffs and those last few games when he came over. But, come on, the guy had no time to adapt to the system, the team's teammates. He was playing bottom 6 too. They didn't really give him a huge opportunity which makes total sense because you don't want to throw a brand new guy right up into a role of second line or first line. Even though he is that kind of player, I just don't think you can kind of throw him up there that early. So let's see. How are we in terms of cap space? I mean, 4 million cap space. Let's see. Maybe moving Price to LTIR. Does that save us any? It's not. So would trading Carey Price save us any cap space? Let's see. We'll add a trade here. Send him over to San Jose Sharks because they can take him. And in order to get that money off our books, it might require a second-round pick. So we'll go ahead and send that. And that offers us $10.5 million in cap relief. Man, it's huge. This team has a lot of cap space and a lot of assets to play with here. So I think you can really speed run, your rebuild back into a contending spot here with all the tradable assets that you have and all the money that you have to spend. So now let's see, left defense 1. There is a little bit of a hole here. So I'm going to go ahead here. Make sure we still have this draft pick that I want us to have. We do. We have our 2026 second round pick. So this is where you could leverage your assets and your cap space if you're the Canadiens against a team that doesn't have the benefit of having cap space like you and has a whole roster. So what the Canadiens could really use after trading Matheson here is a left defenseman, and who better than RFA Nick Hague to go for it. You give him 4.680, that upper limit right here. You give him $1 less than that, 0.75. Then you give him that for 2 years, give or take. He'll probably only want short term because he'll ultimately be worth more than that, most likely. So we're going to give him that second for an offer sheet for Nick Hague. And then bang, that is your first pairing left defenseman with Gooley right under him. And Xhaka in the third pair. I mean, I'm not super big on our Xhaka just because kind of like Rampy. He's not really good for anything other than fighting and, being physical. And as entertaining as that can be, I just don't think it's a sustainable way to stay on an NHL roster. Or else you kind of just become like a Ryan Reeves who gets recycled around a lot. And only reason he's really still in the league is because of his name. If it was because of the player he is, he would have been out years ago. But I guess some teams think it's worth having him. But as Toronto has just recently found out, even paying him more than like $1 million turns out to be an overpay that, you kind of have to bury a little bit. So we're going to put Ryan Bacher in. Let me make sure he's a righty or lefty. Oh, he's a righty. Okay. Being a righty makes this a little bit complicated, so maybe we can leave Xhaka there then. Unless they have anyone down here that I forgot about. I do want to sign Jakob Dobe, $950K for 2 years. We'll sign Caden Primo as well, 1.1 mil for 2 years. Give Jacob Fowler some time. Give him maybe a year in the minors before going straight to the NHL from the NCAA, or another year in the NCAA. Honestly, whatever he really needs. We'll also sign Emil Heineman here. I'll go 2.5 mil for 2 years. Oh, I don't know where he went there. There we go. 2.5 mil for 2 years. Third line or fourth line. It's hard to kind of push Newhook out of that spot. Newhook could also be this 3C here. So you don't really need Pajot in this trade. If you want to give up less assets, you can maybe take something out and not get Pajot. But you could also get Pajot and do this trade and strengthen your bottom six and still keep Newhook on the third line at left wing. But that's if he's good enough playing left wing like he is playing center. So, and also you have the spot where, if you want, you could have Newhook at center, Heineman at third line. Heineman's solid, he's good. I don't know if he's really like a top nine or a third line guy that'll play a huge depth role on a contending team that can help win a cup. which is kind of why I bring in Pajot here, and I have Newhook fill that role because I think Newhook has more potential to be that just because he's a better player than Heineman. But I also just don't know how much use Heineman would be to you playing on your fourth line, right? So we still need a fourth line center here. You have Owen Beck, who you could bring in, but he's only 21, and I also like having, the extra guy on the roster to sub in for injuries. So just put him in the press box. So looking at my trade board here, you kind of just need a fourth line center. I like Lars Eller, former Canadian. Played pretty good last year on the Penguins and the Capitals. So, bring him back to where his career started for nothing too crazy. It was $1.2 million for 1 year. And he'll be our fourth line center. Only issue I really have with this forward core is that I don't think the fourth line is very fourth liney, if you know what I mean. I don't know if like grit, PK, tenacity. I mean, although you do get that with Gallagher, but I feel like Heineman and Eller might not be the energy guys that you want on your fourth line, but they could also be better than an average fourth line if they kind of click and can provide that depth of scoring. So, another comment on the Pajot trade. I know it also forces Jake Evans to the wing. I don't really like the deal he just signed. It's 4 years, $2.85 million. I think it's a little long just for a guy who hasn't really done much. And if I remember correctly, after he signed that extension, he kind of disappeared for the rest of the season. So he's a righty, though, so I have no problem slotting him in on the right wing. Again, Pajot really only has 1 year left on his deal, so it's not a huge commitment by any means. And I know Bergevin's not the GM anymore, but the Canadiens have always loved their French guys. So bringing in JG Pajot for 1 year, I think it only helps. It doesn't hurt too bad. And then the second that contract's up, go ahead and throw Evans or Newhook in there and then find a third line right winger. So I don't hate doing that at all. So looking at this roster here, let's see, make sure we're not over the roster limit. We are not. 23 out of 23 roster spots and a remaining $4 million in cap space for any additional trades that the Canadiens would want to do. So that's probably going to wrap it up for this video. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I will also link this Puckpedia roster in the description, so you can go ahead and comment directly on the roster as well using that link. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will be back probably later today with episode 16 for the Nashville Predators, just because July 1st is fastly approaching, and I kind of want to get these videos done before then. Kind of already accepted that I won't be done with them by the draft. But the good thing is with this draft, I mean, there's not a ton of guys who are going to make the NHL right away. And for the teams that have guys who will make the NHL right away, I'm trying to, not forget about that and put them on those other rosters. So thank you guys for tuning in. I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.